there were new arrivals coming into the company at this time. First is Fred Ottman, who's arriving under the name of Tugboat Thomas, which will soon be shortened to Tugboat. And he had made a name for himself in Florida as Big Steel Man, and now he's here. And Ted, they got this big guy dressed up as a sailor. What did you think of this gimmick for Big Fred Ottman?
Hey, you know what? He's a good guy. He's a good guy. I didn't obviously, and I didn't meet him until until the WWF brought him in. And so, yeah, good guy, got no issues with him.
You take a look at Fred, and I like first thing that pops into my head when I look at him is I'm like, boy, what would Bill Watts have done in Mid-South with a guy the size of Fred Ottman, this massive human being, just like jumps right off the page. He's like a comic book character.
Yeah.
And then it's like he comes to the WWF. It's just kind of a sign of the times where Vince is like, yeah, I don't know, put him in a sailor's outfit and have him say toot toot when he's in the ring. He's a tugboat. It's just such a weird gimmick. Ted, if they wanted you to be a sailor coming in the door, do you think you would have signed the contract?
I don't think so. No, I am not Popeye.
I imagine you would have tried your chances down there with the Crockett's.
Didn't they try to do? I can't remember who did it, but I don't know. Somebody that looked a lot like Popeye. I don't know.
Oh man, there was a Popeye gimmick out there at one point.
Well, no, I don't think so.
Well, now
you couldn't have called him Popeye anyway.
Well, now you've got me curious. I got to look this up. In wrestling though, I wonder what the guy would take instead of spinach as a wrestler. Probably like probably some somas. that would get him going.
I have no idea.
Another name coming in during this period is Earthquake. And man, Big John Tenta, what an impressive looking guy himself. And I mean, of course, it's ironic. These two big monstrous guys are coming in at about the same time, and pretty soon they're going to be known as the Natural Disasters.
Right.
Man, he's a former sumo wrestler, legit badass, and apparently a pretty nice human being. Ted, what can you tell us about Big John Tenta?
Big John Tenta was just what you just said, a really nice guy, and thank God, because that size, you wouldn't want him to be like some freak who, wants to beat everybody up. No, he was a really good guy, and very easy to work with. And it's true, he was, here's a guy who legitimately had been a sumo wrestler in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and that sumo wrestling, it ain't no joke, buddy. That's some hard stuff.
It takes a hell of a man to train in sumo. Like their training is apparently really grueling, and boy, what a physical.
Absolutely. So, but good guy.
One of the things that Jake has always told me about Earthquake was that he was surprised, how young he was during this period. I mean, when he's coming in the company, he's in his 20s. He looks like he's in his 40s. But he's only in his 20s, and also the lack of experience that he had at this time. He'd only been wrestling for a handful of years at this point, and boom, he's on the biggest stage in wrestling. Ted, everybody always says that you really couldn't see that he was that new. He was just kind of a natural wrestler. Did you get that impression when you were in the ring with him?
Yeah, actually, yeah. I mean, and again, I learned a lot of stuff from you. It's like all these years later, I had no idea that he was that young, that he had, because his work said otherwise,
Yeah, just a young guy, still really green in the business, but just one of those guys that was a good enough athlete and smart enough that he kind of just got it and fit right.
Well, that's it. And the other thing too is guys like that, and there's a lot of guys like that they're big and but they're not, it's kind of like they think they've arrived and they don't want to hear it from anybody. But the other thing that was good about him, he was very coachable.
Ah,
He's one of those guys who would get in the ring, and if he was in the ring with somebody like me or Jake or any one of the other guys that would be the leader in the match, he listened.
Well, one thing that sticks out to me in what you just said there is that this, as a reminder, is an era of professional wrestling where it's like maybe some of the veteran guys are not always quite approachable, where it's like a lot of the guys were in the back playing cards. And, if you try to come up to a guy, if you were like a jobber coming on a WWF card and you came up and said, "Oh, hey, Mr. DiBiase, I'm so and so. What do you want to do tonight?" The answer would usually be what? See you in the ring, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Now, with all that being said, are you guys backstage with a guy like John Tenta saying, "Hey, I think you could improve on this," or "Why don't you try that?" Or is that a moment that would happen?
I don't know. I mean, it could, but I mean, if you're getting in the ring with a guy that's that big, and that he's been a sumo wrestler. I mean, because they ain't nothing. Sumo wrestling is not a work. Sumo's the real deal, buddy.
Yeah.
And I would probably have a little more respect for that guy than I would somebody else. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's like I've had experience with young green guys. They've always, I never had a problem with any of them. They were always very respectful. And hey, Mr. DiBiase, I mean, they know, I'm here to do a job for you. I mean, what do you want to do? And that was great. I just never, and I never had I just never had anybody like bow up on me or whatever, and even, and Big John, man, I mean, here's a guy who, didn't, didn't have to be nice, but thank God he was.
Yeah, like what could you do about it if that guy
I mean,
decided
yeah, really.
he wanted he
Yeah.
wanted to take advantage of you in the ring? You couldn't do anything.
Yeah. No, no, he was a good guy.
Last thing on this whole like enhancement guys coming up to you bit like Ted, were you the type who would just say see you in the ring, or were you like, hey, what do you do, and how like trying to find ways to help the guy out?
No, I would always take time with guys, and say, okay, because I remember when I was green, in me when I and you're talking about me, somebody who was raised in the business. I've been around the wrestling business my entire life,
Hmm.
and I would take time with those guys, because I mean I remember when I first started, I wanted to make an impression, and you want to try to get along, and a lot of but then again, some of the old timers, it's like they're playing cards in the dressing room, and a lot of them would, they say, like, hey, I'll see you in the ring, kid. And that was it. But then when they got in the ring, obviously they were led. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and it's just a matter of listening to the veteran and keeping your mouth shut, and you'll
Yeah,
have an okay match if you do
yeah,
that.
that's right.